Today we're going to talk about two-step equations. I've got two equations here, and I'm going to solve both of them and kind of point out some similarities and differences. One of the first things I do when I solve equations is I always draw a line straight down from the equal sign. That way, whatever I do on one side, I have to do on the other, and this is just my visual reminder to do so. Let's start with 2x plus 7 is equal to 11. So remember, the goal of solving any equations is to isolate the variable, meaning to get it by itself, and figure out what its value is. So another helpful thing to do is to put a box around our variable and the coefficient, and that's just a visual reminder to myself to leave it alone until I get rid of everything else. Now I can see that there are constants that have been added on the side with the variable, and so I'm going to use my inverse operations. So I've got this plus 7, so the inverse of that would be to subtract 7, so I'm going to do that on both sides. And then I'm going to see what I'm left with. 11 minus 7 is 4. These will cancel each other out and become 0. I don't need to write that 0, and I'm left with what's in the box, which is 2x. Now at this point, I've cleared away everything from my variable, and so I just need to get rid of the coefficient. I've got a 2x. That means that that 2 is multiplying the x, so the inverse of that is going to be to divide. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2. I'm left with 2 on this side. These will cancel, and I'm left with an x. Now remember, our last step is always to substitute it back into the equation, whatever value we get. So we have 2 times 2 plus 7. Does that equal 11? And we end up with, I'm going to write it over here, 4 plus 7, which is indeed 11. So yes, that's a check for that one. When you substitute it back in and you get the same value on both sides, you've balanced that equation. And so we've solved it. Now let's look at our other equation. So once again, we have a two-step equation. I'm going to draw my line down from that equal sign. I'm going to go ahead and put a box around my x so I can see what's going on. So now on this side, I have a minus 6. So I need to do the inverse of that, which is going to be to add 6 to both sides. I'm going to end up with 8. These cancel. I do not need, and by canceling I mean that a negative 6 plus 6 is equal to 0. So I do not need to write that down, but what I do need to do is write what is left, which is our x over 3. Now, the coefficient with this x is, it is being divided by 3. It's the same thing as saying that x is being multiplied. You could have also written it like this, 1/3 x. These are the same things, 1/3 times x and an x divided by 3. But what we need to do is we need to do the inverse operation, and so that means that we're going to multiply both sides by 3. I'm going to multiply by 3. That's going to leave us with just an x on this side, because these 3's will cancel, and then 8 times 3 is 24. So of course we have to substitute it back into our equation to see if 24 makes our original equation balance, and we end up with 24 divided by 3 minus 6. Does that equal 2? 24 divided by 3 is 8. 8 minus 6. We end up with 2 equals 2. So yes, that balances on both sides. Now remember, when I'm saying about substituting, what I mean is to take the answer that you get and to put it back into the original equation. If you end up with the same value on both sides, then you've figured out what x actually equals. The goal is to find out what x is so that we get the same number on both sides of the equation.